What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we return with Scott Ian Lewis of Carnifex. Great to be able to talk with you. It feels like an eternity ago since we spoke. Could you believe Summer Slaughter was 2 years ago?
Yes and no. Yes, I can because it's weird. Like the year and a half lockdown, it was like the days are long, but the year was short. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I do gotta say though, the last album, World War X, I feel like has a lot more context now, even before it.
Right.
So like, way to be ahead of the game, man. I've always thought that Carnifex was always ahead of its time with its art, and we're kind of eating those words now.
Right. Yeah, I was talking about a dystopian future. Little did I know.
Yeah, yeah, I know, man. I'm gonna be writing an article on like the albums that predicted this, and there's that.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Yeah, the Heaven Shall Burn album though I think takes the cake on that.
Oh, yeah, that is a great band. I do like those guys.
Yeah. But thank you for keeping us busy with some new music as we got the Graveside Confessions EP coming out. Was this meant to just be kind of like a sort of like a one-off thing to hold people over while we wait for a follow-up to World War X, or is this kind of like a separate entity from just the Carnifex catalog?
Yes, no, it's a full length. The reason Spotify shows it as an EP is only because they do this thing called waterfall singles, where they take all the singles that you've put out and they put them together in one little thing, and they label it an EP, which I wish they didn't because it is confusing. But it's actually it's a 15-song record,
Oh wow.
hour and 3 minutes. And basically everything you've heard on the EP is all the singles we've rolled out so far, and then we got some more coming as we get towards September 3rd, which is when the all 15 songs are out.
Yeah. And could the songs that we've heard so far maybe serve as like a clear representation of what the entirety of it is going to sound like?
I think so. Yeah, I do think so. Particularly the title track. It's also the opening track to the album. I think it serves as a great kind of general idea of what you can expect from the record. It has a few different sides to it. And then on the record, we still have some songs that are a little bit different. We always try to not just write the same song, 10 times and try to show some different looks. Maybe this one's a little more blackened. Maybe this one's a little more, breakdown oriented. Maybe this one's a little more riff oriented. And I think we did that well on this record.
Does it conceptually have like a follow-up tendency to World War X, or being that like you mentioned that Carnifex's music is sort of like character driven, it has like a cinematic element behind it. Is this like a new era for Carnifex, or like a new story in a way?
It is. I will say, yeah, it's World War X is for us. I make the joke that the record should have been called World War Flex, and it's kind of because we really tried to work with a lot of people and bring elements of the band to the forefront that kind of try to transcend us beyond kind of the pigeonhole of deathcore. Not for any reason other than we had kind of got beat over the head with we're kind of like lowest common denominator music, or the juggalos of metal or deathcore. And so we tried to push back against that on World War X, trying to work with some big name producers, big names in the music biz, and really show people like, look, we have a lot of different sides to us beyond deathcore. Whereas on Graveside Confessions, we really found ourselves, yes, due to circumstance of the lockdown, but also kind of by decision, we said, hey, like this record's about us and it's for our fans. We're not really worried with working with anybody in the biz. We're not really worried about guests, and we're not worried about critics or what the record's going to score on the cool scale. We kind of don't care. If World War Flex is us doing this, Graveside Confessions is us doing this. You know what I mean? It was kind of just like, hey, we're locked away in this tomb and we're going to do us. And the record you get out of it's going to be very real, very vulnerable, very exposed. If you give us a shot, you're going to see the realness and the authenticity and the passion in this album. If you're still some deathcore hater, fucking see ya, because it's a deathcore record,
Well,
So that was our mindset,
Well, deathcore has entered a period now where I think it's starting to become like, remember when like metalcore used to be like a bad word and stuff, and then going from Shadows
Right.
Fall to Kill Switch to Asking Alexandria, but now I feel like deathcore, like I've noticed, has really changed from like the Suicide Silence and the Whitechapels to like when you're seeing in bands like Lorna Shore or Shadow of Intent and even Carnifex. I thought, really, I've always thought that Carnifex's entire catalog was like a smorgasbord of deathcore. I think your catalog in itself demonstrates the evolution of the genre.
Is deathcore?
No,
Carnifex is deathcore. I like that. I'll take that.
it's the evolution of deathcore, because I mean, when you compare to Dead in My Arms to World War X or World War X or World War Flex, because that's going to stick with me for a while now,
Yep.
I feel like that there's just a constant evolution demonstrated in it, which is why I've always thought that the character thing was kind of like appropriate that you represent, because I feel like it's not just the music evolving, but you almost feel like this character that you talk about developing as well.
It's true, it is, and I think that character maybe comes out in the lyricism, and I wish I had the album to hear it and kind of see what we're going. But I tried to go and contrast World War X rather than making it a big dystopian, semi-ambiguous record that maybe could be interpreted a few different ways to suit your taste. I really tried to go very specific and very internal and very personal on this album. You probably see that in the singles. And, I tried to really kind of be vulnerable and really express some insecurities and my own questions on, life and existence and what comes after. And then it goes back to why we chose Graveside Confessions as the title for the record. Not just musically, the song encapsulates the record, but I think that title in itself represents what the album is about, which is, look, we're going to talk about the things that you don't want to talk about. They're the things that you keep inside as long as you can, and only at the last minute when you got only X amount of words left to say are you going to say, actually this is what's going on and you need to know. And I think the idea was like through all the chaos we went through working on the record, losing the tour that we lost, going through that long period of we don't know when the next tour is. I haven't heard from the agent in 4 months. Our agent's on unemployment. I thought he was the guy with the real job. Man, we're fucked. It's like you feel very vulnerable. And I kind of had this thought is like, what if this is the last record we ever write? What if this is the last time we reach these fans as Carnifex? What are we going to say? And that goes back to that theme and where I was coming from on the record, is just, look, I'm just going to spill my guts and purge. Yeah, it was like, it was about, look, I'm going to spill my guts. I'm going to put it all out there. And if it's the last thing I ever say to you guys, at least you got this truth.
Yeah.
Do with it what thou wilt. Here it is. Here's everything about me. Maybe you can relate to it. Here are my insecurities. Here are my questions. If I never talk to you again, just read the record.
Do you feel that like Graveside Confessions is almost like the least metaphorical Carnifex album?
Well, I mean, there's certainly tons of metaphor in it. When I write, I try to use this little rule I call the 3 S's, and it's subtext, subversion, and satire. So in all of those songs, that lyricism, you're getting a kind of schizophrenic narrator. You're getting an unreliable narrator. I am coming from different places and playing devil's advocate. One paragraph is from one perspective, and the next will be the counter to that. And that's kind of just to showcase, mixed emotion. I think we all have mixed emotion. And what's interesting is, like, I feel like we live in this era of contrived absolutes where people are so fucking sure about something. But the reality is that's just, you've chosen that assurance. It's not actually there, and it's easily picked apart. And I think my vulnerability was saying, look, I have mixed emotions about stuff. I don't have a clear answer on stuff. Like, I feel this way some days and I feel this way other days. That's kind of what Seven Souls is. It's really a song about mixed emotion. It's a song about split personality. It's a song about being bipolar, song about struggling with mood swings. And that's, I try to carry that vulnerability into all the songs,
And if you don't mind me asking, because I wanted to ask this for the sake of this interview, because this year is also the 10-year anniversary of Until I Feel Nothing. That was the Carnifex album I actually discovered you guys on. And it was a great time. and I was just curious to like what the mindset was kind of going into that album, because I feel like Until I Feel Nothing lyrically, I feel like that has a rawness and truth behind it as well. So I was wondering if maybe the 10-year anniversary of that, after what you were telling me, I was wondering if maybe that was
Yeah,
on the back of your mind.
there are similarities there. We make the joke Until I Feel Nothing is the forgotten album. It's like our worst selling one, worst streamed one, and it came out. It was our last record we did on Victory, and we had our relationship with them had really deteriorated to the point where we basically weren't working together, and so I did no promo for that record. We barely toured on it. Our agent fired us on that record, previous agent. It just wasn't great. We lost a member after that record. I was going through a lot of personal bullshit on that record. And Until I Feel Nothing was, again, it was one of those titles where I kind of hit it in plain sight. And that was where I was at. I did the band until I felt nothing. And what I mean by that is like, nothing was making me very excited and nothing was making me very depressed. I was just like, here we are.
I feel like that there was something about that album. I enjoyed that album. Again, it's sentimental to me because that's what I discovered Carnifex on. That was the first album I heard, and then it made me go back to even deeper. But like, I just thought it was unique as it definitely felt like a, even though you portray sort of like a character and sort of like a cinematic element, I feel like you've never failed at bringing your own personal element into it, where I think like people still get an idea of your emotion despite what the lyrics are exactly saying. And I think Until I Feel Nothing had like a melancholy or uncertain sort of tone behind it.
Oh yeah, I absolutely did, man. I mean, we were going through so much shit through the label. Even as we were writing that record, we couldn't get them to send us our label money. We have an advance to record the record. They wouldn't give it to us. And it was like, you're like writing it. I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I remember we did a tour where the tour was great. I was just fucking numb. And it was because we were in this weird place. We weren't making any money as the way the contract was structured. The whole anti-deathcore sentiment was at like a peak in 2011. People fucking hated deathcore, and they were not afraid to tell you. People hated Victory. They were not afraid to not work with us because we were on Victory. It was tough. Like I said, my personal life was a real shit show. And it was just one of those records where I kind of hung it out there. Look, if you're going to take the time to read between the lines, you probably know way more about me than I'd ever tell you directly. And the exact same thing is true on Graveside. And that comes from kind of that fuck it place. World War X, we were real confident. We knew what we were doing. We had a plan. We had a schedule. It was all, we were calling our shots. Graveside Confessions, we were locked in a fucking studio for a year and a half wondering if we have jobs. Yeah. And wondering how we're going to pay off all this debt and wondering when we're going to work again. And it's like Zoolander. We're looking into a puddle saying, who am I? Like that was me. I was fucking Derek Zoolander, just, who am I? And I put all that in the album. I put it there really plain. And when you get a chance to read the lyrics, like if you take the time to read them and you kind of know my little tricks in writing and the whole multiple personality, like kind of going with the subtext and the satire, I paint myself out pretty clearly,
Do your albums almost kind of have in a way like I know you're a big movie guy, so I'd imagine you've seen this movie, and very unpopular opinion, but I freaking love this movie, overhated beyond belief, but The Butterfly Effect. Do you almost like look at your albums like The Butterfly Effect in a way? Like if you were listening to Dead in My Arms, do you feel like you're back in 2007? If you're listening to The Disease and the Poison, you feel like you're back in 2008? And
I can be. I have a very clear, I don't know. My dad tells me I have a photographic memory. I don't know if that's true, but maybe somewhere in the middle. I do know that I do have a very good memory for remembering a moment and kind of remembering a lived experience. And I do really clearly, man, I could walk you through almost every day in the studio when we did Disease and the Poison. We did Dead in My Arms in 2 days for $600. They were all one takes. But that's, and kind of going back to Graveside, we re-recorded 3 of the old tracks, and they're on the new record. So I can't wait for you to hear those. But the reason we did that was we were kind of, we were going down memory lane a little bit, but we also were really loving how the record was sounding. We loved the way the recording was coming out, as far as the mix, the master, the guitar tone, the way my voice was sounding. We were just digging on it. So we said, look, if we're ever going to recapture that intensity from the first album, this could be our chance. You know, this could be where we do it. And so I think we just try to fucking take all that, everything from the past, everything from the present, all the insecurities. But yeah, we got a little confidence. Like, it's like, yeah, we were insecure, but it's that split mind thing, showing the duality of man, you know, which is really something I go back to personally in my kind of own philosophy. Is like, there is so much duality and nuance that we don't acknowledge so much anymore. Everybody kind of goes, well, look, you got A or B, you need to check which box you are and then move on, right? Yeah. And I just go, man, there's so much gray area in life. Let's examine that. And I don't know, we put all that in the record. So,
and kind of like mentioning this sort of like element that you have in it, this rage, because you mentioned that capturing the moment thing. I love asking artists this because sometimes you're working on a song for, you know, hours, days, weeks, months, even years. Like, so when it comes to capturing that moment, do you find it maybe like the longer you're working on something, the harder it is to sort of maintain that original emotional spark?
yes and no. You know, here's the thing: is I don't think there's a hard and fast rule for using the creation time to use that as a metric for, you know, good or bad, because I've been in both boats. I've been working on a song that came together in a day and is fucking badass, and I've worked on a song like, take Dark Heart Ceremony for example, our opening track on uh, Slow Death. That was one of the first songs we wrote for the album, but it was one of the last songs we finished, because it was a goofy part in the middle that we wanted to change, and I couldn't figure out the melody of the chorus and this, that, and the other thing, and it took a long time to come around. But I think that song's fantastic now. I really enjoy it. But then you could take a song like "Pray for Peace." That song came together really quick, and I don't know. I don't know which is which. You know, I don't know which one's better, and I don't know kind of what the secret sauce is behind a song coming together quickly versus a song taking a while. But I know that if your mindset is every part has to be good, every part has to stand on its own, and I'm not gonna kind of phone in any part. If that's your mindset in a 1 day song or a 1 month song, you should still be able to get a great one when you're done. They don't all come easy. It's just, you know, I don't believe in the muse, you know, inspiration striking and then suddenly you got a fucking hit. I think you got to be at the desk when it's not working, so you're at the desk when it is working. But you can get a lot of great shit out of the desk when it's not working, man. I can tell you so many times, not just with music, but the lyrics, the script, you name it. I'll sit down and be like, I got nothing today. And then I start my little trick with editing. I'll go look at the last thing I wrote and I find my typos. I find where maybe I could have used a better word, or maybe I used the same word twice and I need to come up with a different one. And I just do that for a half hour. And then when you know it, I'm fucking writing and we're making shit better. And so I just take kind of that workman's approach because I'm not gifted. That's another thing. I didn't go to music school. I don't have some shortcut. This shit doesn't come naturally to me. I got to find the moment like anybody else, and I know it. 8 records deep, I know it. It's just about sitting down and working on it till you're happy with it.
And the other thing is too is being that your albums like do have sort of like this. I consider Carnifex to be the Lord of the Rings of deathcore. I need to listen to one album to listen
I
to the
love
other.
it.
Like, you know,
That's a compliment.
I'm not gonna get World War X without listening to Slow Death. I'm not gonna get Slow Death
Yeah.
without listening to Die Without Hope. But like I was interviewing, I don't know if you heard of this great up and coming Italian death metal band called Hideous Divinity. They're kick ass. Like they're
I have heard of them.
yeah, they're very much inspired by movies as well. And like I
Awesome.
love asking bands with this sort of effect because when you're playing live, you know, you're bringing songs from you know, the set list consists of albums from multiple, or the set list consists of songs from multiple albums. So do you think that when you're playing this material live, that it almost changes the narrative of what the songs were originally saying in a way when you go from like a Slow Death song to a Die Without Hope song to a Hell Chose Me song or something like that?
It can, you know, it depends on kind of what the theme is of that particular track. But, you know, here's the funny thing. I have this little thing I tell myself every once in a while when I'm trying to get in my headspace for a show is remember the lyrics. And I don't mean remember them as in don't forget the words. I mean remember their meaning. Where were you at up here when you wrote them? All the people you've spoken to over the years that have come up and said, "Hey, this song helped me through this. This song helped me through that. This song means this to me." Remember that shit right now. Remember that emotion. And that's kind of why I need the character, is because those songs do have tons of mixed emotion in them. There are a lot of sad songs in there. There's a lot of songs in there with no happy ending. And I need to go there for the catharsis, not just for myself, but for the audience and for the sake of the honesty and the performance. But I can't live there forever because, to be honest, it's a pretty dark place. And it's one of those things where, like, I think it's that purge. It's like a rage room. If you can go somewhere safe and get it out, but then come back, you'll be all right. But if you're just trashing your own house, well, you probably should talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm at with the songs and the performances. Like, look, the performance is a purge. I'm fucking vomiting up poison from years past, from trauma past, because somewhere it's still in there, and I want to get it out. And I think the audience is coming from a similar place with their own, their own set of circumstances. So for me, it's like I got to go there and be real about it and take the audience with me. But then at the end, we get to leave.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about expressing your vision? Because like it seems like Carnifex is more than just a band. It's almost like an idea as well. Like have you ever thought about expressing your creative mind through multiple mediums as well, like outside of music?
Yeah, well, I did do a comic book. I did a
Yeah.
graphic novel. It
Yep.
was called Death Dreamer. Yeah, so that was originally I had written that as a television pilot, and I tried to get people to give me the green light. The tricky thing about writing TV shows or movies is they cost a ton of money, and there's a very political, cool guy system for getting that money and getting the okay to go shoot and then have a place that'll distribute it. It's very similar to the music biz. You can be a great band and you can write a sick demo, kind of doesn't mean anything. If you don't have a label that's putting it out and you don't have an agent that's going to get you on tours and you don't have a way to market it and a way to sell it, you're kind of just a band with a demo. And I mean, that's a lot of bands. There's a lot of great musicians and great bands that never go anywhere because really that's not what it has. The music biz has nothing to do with your skill. I'm not that good of a musician technically. I never went to music school. We're succeeding. And I know friends that have great talents that can't seem to get a band off the ground. It's because it's not really about how good you are. And the same thing is true in film and TV. It's not really about how good your script is. It's about who says yes and who's got the green light capability. So I tried to get a script sold for a long time. I wrote a bunch of different stories, entered them in contests, did all this thing, blah, blah, blah. Couldn't get it off the ground. So I said, well, I want the story to live. I believe in trying to get something out there that's beyond just the medium of lyricism. I want to do a narrative. I want characters. I want to create a world. So I did Death Dreamer as a comic book series. And because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to continue it because my main source of income was abruptly shut off, which was what, funded my independent comic book. And so as far as moving forward, other mediums, yeah, I'm working on a book. The reason it's a book, I know it's a little boring, but man, everything is so fucking expensive. Shooting anything is really expensive. Even making the comic book is really expensive. And these are all like these big financial investments that they kind of change what you're working on in a weird way. Like, and the band is already a business. We got to be very careful with how things run, especially after the year and a half we went through. We got our asses kicked. So it's very much about, yeah, we got to write great records and be artists, but we got to be businessmen too. And I'm like, man, what's that medium I can operate in that's unadulterated, there isn't that thought in my mind of like, oh man, this is going to be expensive to make this. I better change this scene. I can't use this set piece. I can't send these characters there. That's too expensive. I want to get away from that. And I go, well, you know what? You know where you can get away with that? Books.
Yeah.
So I'm going to write a fucking book,
I've read your lyrics before without listening to the music before. That's like a weird hobby of mine. I love just reading lyrics to see.
I used to do that with Cradle of Filth all the time.
Oh man, and the Death of Love, that opening line is just a masterpiece. I mentioned that to Danny Filth when I interviewed him. I was like, dude, like I want that read at my wedding, even though it's the most anti-love song ever. But like I think your lyrics do convey a lot of imagery, with or without music. So if you're writing a book in a similar way that you're writing lyrics, I think people won't have a hard time getting an image in your mind. That's how I look
I
at it.
appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely. Again, it goes back to my sort of passion for the craft. And look, I don't think I'm a gifted writer. In fact, I have dyslexia. I am a ninth grade dropout. I never did that well at school. Odd, because my mom was an English teacher for 25 years. But for me, it was like I have the stories in my head, and I'm going to try to shit them out best I can. Maybe it's not the perfect prose. Maybe I'm a little kind of redundant with my themes, but that's the space I operate in. And it kind of goes back to that authenticity. It's like, look, World War X was a little bit different because we were thinking about outside factors. And if I go and like change my writing to please other people, that just doesn't inspire me. So it's kind of like, look, I'm going to stay my course. It's like Stephen King. When he writes horror movies, people are all about it, or horror books, people are about it. But every once in a while, he'll write like a different kind of story, and people are like, that's his coming of age story. You don't need to worry about that one. I feel like it's because he's like, look, I can do other shit, and everyone's like, yeah, we don't care. Give us the horror. And I kind of like, I'm skipping that step and just being like, look, this is my lane. And if you're down for this, you want this, then hell yeah, let's go. If you're looking for another story, then I'm not the guy.
Well, you know what I really think would be a great idea? Maybe just a future possible thing. I think Carnifex, whether it's just you or with the whole band, maybe do a movie soundtrack together.
Here, I'll tell you a funny story. You got to keep an eye on the time for me. I got another one at 1:30.
Yeah. I got
Uh,
2 minutes left.
oh, okay, cool. Because they're gonna do a Zoom deal, and I gotta. Anyway, so, yeah. Here's a funny story. "Bury Me in Blasphemy." That song, "Bury Me in Blasphemy," was supposed to be on the reboot of the Crow soundtrack.
What?
So I'm not sure how. Yeah, I don't know if you follow movie news close, but I mentioned I really tried to break into the Hollywood stuff, and I made some friends that were writers. I had a friend who was going to be the screenwriter on the reboot of The Crow. Jason Momoa was attached to be the Crow. It was all going to happen, and they pulled the plug on it because they couldn't come to a budgetary agreement. That's how all movies fucking die, money.
Definitely.
And so we had, in preparation, I knew my buddy's working on this. He's like, dude, we're doing this movie. Momoa's the lead. There's going to be a soundtrack. I'm like, we got a song for you, And we were joking about it. He's like, I'm going to get you hooked up, bro. This is going to happen. You're going to be the band in the background and when they go to the club, And we're like, yeah, this is great. We've been waiting for this day.
That would have been your Ace Ventura moment.
Yeah, right. And then, the movie never gets made, or it never even got out of production, really. It never got past like deciding on a budget. But we had written that song for that. It never happened. And so from that, we'd also done the Head Like a Hole cover. Was in anticipation if they didn't want an original. Oh, we got a fucking cover queued up for you guys, So we were ready to go. Didn't happen, and so we did the EP instead. But that's kind of like, we have tried to foray or sort of bridge the gap. But I'll say this, it's like movie people are like, we're movie people, and music people are like, we're music people, and they both think they do it better and they're better than the other guys. So it's kind of, I know the jump's there. We just haven't found it yet. We'll get there. It's like Indiana Jones, the part where he's going across and he's like, all right, just believe, like we got to find that moment, and then you'll see us pop up somewhere.
It will happen one day, and I foresee it. But I know you're busy. I know you got a lot of interviews lined up. I just wanted to thank you so much for your time and for another great discussion, and knocking on wood, but I'm looking forward to seeing you on the tour with Black Dahlia Murder. I got my ticket, and I'm ready to go. But thank you, everybody. Scott of Carnifex, Graveside Confessions, coming out very soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.